myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Those Were the Days with George Mitchell, and we are looking forward to another episode. George, what have you got for us today, mate?
Well, 84, 85, easiest way to describe it is we're back in the big time. We're back in the first division, which, a great thrill for everybody. And just to put the people in the picture where we are, 1984, if you're a music buff, Careless Whisper by George Michael was top. Just Called to Say I Love You, Stevie Wonder was there. When Doves Cry by Prince. And What's Love Got to Do with It? Tina Turner. There's a top 10 list, which is fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, and biggest films of the year: Back to the Future, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Rocky 4, and The Color Purple. So the good cinema list as well. So that's where we are in time. Now we're ready for first time back in the first division for a while, and everybody's anticipating. But remember, this is Newcastle United. So what's the first thing that happened is the manager resigns, walks out. Arthur Cox just disappears, and of course, on top of the fact that Keegan retired and lots of other things happened.
Yeah, Terry Mack as well.
Well, he fell out with Charlton, didn't he? That's right.
He did, yeah.
And as I say, there was nearly a riot because of Arthur Cox. I mean, I remember the heated discussions in my home with my father and me and the others that were still around. That was it Seymour that didn't like Cox, etc., etc. Stan Seymour seemed to be getting the blame of something, and really nobody ever came out with why he went. I suspect it was to be the fact that he wasn't going to get supported financially, but that's another matter. That's just a guess. So we were stuck without a manager, and all sorts of people were being kicked around. And of course, Jack Charlton had made it known from his media position that he was ready to go back into football. And I think there was a feeling of one or two people, and Seymour, the chairman particularly, that wouldn't it be nice to have a Geordie manager for a football club? And so they appointed Jack Charlton. And I think the first press conference was almost as bad as joking ears at me, and he sat down and he said, well, they're £700,000 in the debt, and because they've been spending money like water. And then I'm going to play football sensibly and safely, and instead of taking all the risks and all the rest of it. And you began to wonder what we were going to get. And no incomings during the summer. All the incomings happened during the year. When asked about how they would play, press were concerned that he would stop the free-flowing football we'd seen in the Championship and do something else. And I can quote what he said from the press conference: "I will do what is necessary. No part of the game will be neglected. I'm probably the first manager that understands the Geordie temperament, and I criticise it. They start demanding changes after 2 bad results. And if that happens, I'll be out the door." So there's a great way to start your career as Newcastle manager. It's all just unbelievable after such a fantastic promotion season. So let's get on with the season anyway. So Charlton's in charge now. People like David Mills and John Truick are already on their way. Chris Waddle, nice picture. I think that's a nice picture, Chris. Not long before he's on his way, because playing under. If you read his biography, some of the things he says about Charlton are quite, as with Peter Beardsley as well. They're both extremely critical of Charlton. and it's not surprising. And the last thing Arthur Cox did, one of the last things, was to make this young man a professional from the juniors, which was a good piece of work by him, and we'll always be grateful for. But look at the hair and all the rest of it. I mean, it's amazing. We, as always, start the season with stack of friendlies. Queen of the South 1-1, Hibernian 3-0, Berwick 3-1, Hartlepool 4-2. Then we have a home friendly against Middlesbrough, which is 2-2. And then we play a game against Gateshead, which clearly is an attempt to help Gateshead financially, I think, because 6,000 at the Redgeoff Park's a good crowd for Redgeoff Park. And we beat them 7-1 with... and then the Gateshead side was none other than Terry Hibbert's brother, Kenny. He'd been persuaded to go to Gateshead from Wolves. So a busy pre-season to get them fit. And starting with the first league game of the season, which people are on tenterhooks for, wanting to see what was going to happen. And it was an away game to Leicester. So we're on our way to Leicester. And great way to start off. Gordon Millen is Leicester's manager still. 18,000, nearly 19,000 at Filbert Street at the game, and Leicester a tidy side and regarded as possibly one of the pushing near the top, but it remains to be seen. Some good players who made great names for themselves. I mean, some of the forwards, I mean, Gary Lineker, Alan Smith, Mark Bright, Ian Banks, all top goal scorers. So they're not going to be a pushover. And Charlton picks his first side: Kevin Carr, Malcolm Brown, John Ryan, Steve Carney, Glenn Roller, Wes Saunders, Neil MacDonald, Kenny Wharton, Chris Waddle, Peter Beardsley, and David McCreary. And it's an interesting selection. So the game goes off, and Steve Carney heads a corner in on 3 minutes. So we're off to a flying start. Then, unfortunately, Gary Lineker on 38 minutes sneaks in a nice shot from the edge of the penalty area to make it 1-1, and that's its half-time score. And then David McCreary, just after half-time, scores one of his goals, and Lineker scores on 73 minutes to equalise. And then just on 80 minutes, Chris Waddle nips in to make it 3-2, and we start off with we're Division 1 season with a win, which is great. No, I don't think many people expected that, with it being the first game in the first division. Incidentally, the fact that we didn't buy any players and all this schmozzle about manager and all the rest of it, all the pundits made were favourites to go down. I remember that quite well. So we're home next against Sheffield Wednesday. Now they came up with us, and strong team, and give us hard game at time. Both times we played them. 30,000 at the game, which tells you how grateful people are that we're back in the first division. Unchanged team. The only slight difference is that John Anderson's the substitute, and halfway through the second half, David McCreary goes off and Ando comes on. Sheffield Wednesday now is still managed by Howard Wilkinson, and still a strong team that they brought up from the second division, and big names in it: Nigel Worthington, Brian Marwood, who they got from Arsenal but went via Middlesbrough, Andy Blair, Imre Varadi, of course, who we know well, Lee Chapman, big strapping forward who used to cause all sorts of problems. Came from Leeds, a big money signing during the summer, and good game, an entertaining game is my memory of it. 35 minutes lead, Chapman out jumps everybody and heads a nice corner in for Sheffield, and then right on half time, Peter Beardsley takes a penalty after the Chris Waddle was brought down in the penalty area, and it's 1-1 at half time. And we have an end sort of game. Then it was quite an attractive game until 50 minutes, and we get a corner. And anybody that's listened to these in the last couple of sessions, the goal scorer from the corner was Kenny Wharton, not the biggest man on the pitch, but he always seems to near post header is all I'd say, because that was his speciality. By Jove, over the years with Newcastle, he did not score some goals in that way, which is quite interesting for he wasn't a huge man. In fact, he was quite a slight guy, really. Anyway, we're home again next week against Aston Villa. Now, Aston Villa had been regarded as one of the tidy sides in the first division. 32,000 at the game. Jack Charlton fields an unchanged team, and Aston Villa now managed by Graham Turner, and strong side, Mervyn Day and Alan Evans around for a long time. Colin Gibson, who a very attractive player, Welsh player. Gordon Cowans at England International eventually. Steve Mahon, Dennis Mortimer, Mark Walters, and at centre forward, Peter Wyth from Newcastle United, of course. A good game, but looked as though it was heading for a 0-0 until in the 48th minute rather, Chris Waddle just after half time does one of these mazy runs down the wing and cuts in and shoots from the corner of the penalty area, and we're 1-0 up. And then it looks like the game's going to drift to a 1-0. But Beardsley on 77 minutes and then Waddle again on 82 minutes, make it 3-0, make it a really comfortable victory. Villa never really looked like they were going to be in that game. It is the truth of the matter. And we're top of the league. Nobody can believe it. It's 3 games and we're already...
Big Jack's miracle.
Absolutely. I mean, goodness gracious. People are starting to wonder if they've been a bit harsh on the man. You know, anyway, top of the league, and then we're away to Arsenal next. And Arsenal are going to be one of the title challengers. The pundits are quite certain of that. Go to Highbury, 38,000 at the game. And Charlton picks an unchanged side: Carr, Brown, Ryan, Carney, Rhoda, Saunders, MacDonald, Wharton, Waddle, Beardsley and McCreary. Arsenal managed now by Don Howe, the ex-World Cup fullback, with a very strong team. Pat Jennings, Viv Anderson, one of the first coloured people to play for England as fullback. Kenny Sansom, who we get to know much better later on in his career. Brian Talbot, David O'Leary, big centre-half, and made a bit of a name for himself as a manager, but made a bit of a mess of it at Leeds. And Stuart Robson, Paul Mariner, centre forward that the Arsenal brought from Ipswich, and Tony Woodcock, a very expensive buy from Nottingham Forest, and none other than Charlie Nicholas, who we used to see a lot on Sky Television in recent times. A very clever Scottish international. So a good game, but one that we're never in is the truth. Brian Talbot on 47 minutes puts Arsenal in the lead, and then Viv Anderson with a tap in from a corner on 55 minutes, and that's a 2-0 win for Arsenal, setting us for our first defeat. Really, it's something to say. However, the next game is Manchester United away. Now, going to Old Trafford always is a difficult game, but this is another team who the pundits believe are going to be there or thereabouts when the title's decided. And we go with the same unchanged team. Halfway through the second half, John Ryan's injured and John Anderson comes in at full back for him. Ron Atkinson, manager of Manchester United now, another big personality manager. 55,000 at the game. and they've got a strong team as always. Kevin Moran, Mike Duxbury, Arthur Albertson, Remy Moses, Jasper Olsen, Brian Robson, another Geordie connection, Gordon Strachan, Norman Whiteside, fast Irish winger, big lad, and Mark Hughes, of course, who was still here in terms of football now. In fact, I think he's manager of Bradford at the moment. We just get slaughtered is the only way to describe it. We hang on until nearly half time, 43 minutes, Jesper Olsen scores. Just after half time, Gordon Strachan scores. And then 59 minutes, Mark Hughes, 75, Strachan again. And then on 72, Remy Moses makes it in that band of 5. Never in the game, never looked like we're going to be in the game. And I think the reality of where we are is now beginning to strike home, because we're now come home to a home match against Everton. Now, there are the 3 teams that we've just played, at Arsenal, Manchester United, now Everton, are the 3 teams that the pundits are saying are going to be challenging for the title. So, it's a tough baptism for the team, but never mind that they've got to play them sometime. 30,000 at the game against Everton. Charlton picks the same team. It changes the substitute to Paul Ferris, who in the second half gets on because Steve Carney gets hurt. Everton come with Howard Kendall, another Geordie manager, great player, tidy midfielder for England and Everton. Howard Kendall is the manager, and the names trot off the lips. Some of them still around now. Neville Southall, see him on the telly occasionally. Gary Stevens, Kevin Ratcliffe, and then none other than a man called Paul Bracewell, who would certainly get to know better later on, and another one called Peter Reid in the midfield, and Kevin Sheedy, Trevor Stephen with Berwick Connections, Trevor, and another big media man, Andy Gray, and Adrian Heath, tidy little left-sided player, very fast, but a bit sneaky. Can have a bit of a dig off the ball, can Adrian Heath, but strong side, and we're going to have to be up for it for this one. So we get off to a flying start. 30 minutes, we get a penalty. Peter Beardsley slots it in. And 26, Kevin Sheedy equalises. 46 minutes, just after half-time, nearly the first kick, Kenny Wharton gets a goal to put us in the lead again. And then on 54, Trevor Stevens scores to equalise it. And then right at the death, right at the last kick, Andy Gray from a corner scores the winner, and we go down 3-2. So that's as I say, that's reality is now beginning to bite in terms of what's happening, and we want something to cheer us up and give us a pick up. Well, that's exactly what we got, because we got an away game at QPR, 14,000 in the game at Loftus Road, and QPR now got Alan Mulry as their manager. Tidy side, good footballing side, with Steve Wicks, Terry Fennick, all former Chelsea players, Gary Micklewhite, John Gregory, Simon Steinrod, Gary Bannister, all dangerous players. Charlton picks an unchanged team to send down to QPR. Well, it looks like it's going fantastically.
On a plastic pitch as well, George.
Plastic pitch, exactly, yes. And which I gather some of the players came off with nasty burns off the pitch. Neil MacDonald on 2 minutes, and then a Waddle trio, 18, 22 and 41 minutes. So we're going at half-time, 4-0. Now, I don't know what's said or what happens in the dressing room in this match at half-time. But when they come out, it's as though they weren't there. They would get Bannister on 48, an old goal by Kenny Wharton on 56, John Gregory on 75, Steve Wicks on 85, and Gary Micklewhite right at the death on 90. And in between, Kenny Wharton scores a one on 84. So the match ends up 5-5. Crazy game, which as I say, I don't know what was said in the dressing room at half time, but wherever it was, I bet there was a lot more said when they went off after losing a 4-0 lead and then ending up with a 5. And there's an action picture from the very game, actually. Amazing game, and want to remember, and certainly want Chris Waddle to remember, because he was outstanding. And we're now looking towards the League Cup. We've been drawn against Bradford City in the League Cup, the first leg, and first game is at home. So we imagine that we'll take this one. Interestingly, whether it's because of Newcastle fans' attitude to the League Cup or not, but only 18,000 at this game, and whether that says how concerned they are, I don't know. But 18,000 is quite a drop from the 35,000 we had at the last league game. Anyway, Charlton picks an unchanged team, and once again, Paul Ferris is the substitute, and in the second half he gets a game because Peter Haddock's injured. And we play Bradford. Hard-working side under Trevor Cherry, the former Leeds fullback, and player manager, of course. And in their side are two names we know very well, Peter Jackson and Chris Wyth, both former Magpies. Stuart McCall, a hard-working Scottish midfielder. John Henry, who we get to know a little bit later on in his career. Mark Ellis, Jack Hawley, Bobby Campbell. A tidy side, some good players in that Bradford side. But to be honest, they were in it briefly. Neil MacDonald scores on 43 minutes. Terry Gray gets an equaliser on 47. And then just to celebrate he's coming on as a substitute, Paul Ferris gets one of his rare goals for Newcastle United on 80 minutes. So we're 2-1. And just to seal it and make the trip to the final whistle comfortable, Kenny Wharton gets one of his near post headers on 85 minutes, and we run out 3-1 winners and look as though we're heading to a reasonable cup run in the League Cup. Anyway, we're through to we've got the next leg to come up, and we're now at home to West Ham in the First Division. West Ham, a good side, not necessarily going to be pressing for the Championship, but certainly not going to be down in the bottom end. They're going to be very, very near. And 29, nearly 30,000, another 40 people, it would have been 30,000 for the crowd, which, if you reflect on the cup match in Bradford, for 80,000. Yeah, Charlton picks an unchanged team, and West Ham come with John Lyle, the former player, is their manager now. Talented coach as well. And some of the names are Ray Stewart, Tony Gale, Alvin Martin, Billy Bonds, Paul Allen, Jeff Pike, Bobby Barnes, Tony Cotty, and a name that we get to know a lot better, Paul Goddard. And they're a good side, good footballing side. And Peter Beardsley gives her the lead on 42 minutes. And then on 55 minutes, Paul Allen, who was a great goal scorer, equalises on 55 minutes. And that's how it ends. It's a decent football game, but never looked like either side was going to push for a winner. It was all very careful towards the end of the game. And it was... we now have another home game, of course, against Ipswich. And to get a win in this one, and it's still keeping up in the top, just below the top of the league. 26,000 at the game. Unchanged team from Jack Charlton. And Ipswich manager is a man called Bobby Ferguson, who I actually had the pleasure of playing with at Newcastle. Good fullback, Bobby, Bedlington lad, and he nice fella, and I don't know how long he was at Ipswich, but he was well liked, and I suspect he got into Ipswich through his links with Jackie Milburn, but that's my speculation more than anything. Anyway, Ipswich have a good team, and some of the names people will remember: George Burley, Terry Butcher, Russell Osman, Steve McCall, Alan Sunderland, who they got from Arsenal, Kevin O'Callaghan, and a little fella on in the midfield, dangerous little striker, Eric Gates, who we know from he played for both of our near neighbours, but a dangerous little player, just the same. Good game, always is good football with Ipswich. Chris Waddle gets an early goal to calm the nerves. Known goal by George Burley, forced into it by Beardsley, and then a third goal to make it 3-0 from McCreary. And it's a comfortable 3-0. Ipswich never looked like they were going to do anything in the game, and so it keeps we nicely sitting just below the top places, which is, as I say, very comforting and and to many people very surprising, because we're now playing a different brand of football to what we've been playing in the second division, but it seems to be working. So we're away to Bradford for the second leg of the League Cup now, and 10,200 at the game. Charlton sends an unchanged team to Bradford. Bradford, Trevor Cherry's virtually the same team that played us at St James's, except he introduces a young forward into the team called Don Goodman. Now, there's a name that we still see on Sky doing punditry, and he's slotted into the team in place of Mark Ellis, and Gary Abbott, John Henry, all the names that were there before. A straightforward game, and when stuff looks like it's going to be a 0-0, but on 63 minutes, a solo effort by Chris Waddle really sealed the fate of Bradford and got us through to the next round. So that's through the League Cup. The next game's Coventry City away, and Coventry have a reputation for being a good football side. 14,000 at Highfield Road, and once again, Charlton sends an unchanged team out, and the Coventry City team is managed by Bobby Gould, the former Wimbledon player, one of the lunatics that used to play for Wimbledon. But in fairness to Bobby, he did make quite a name for himself as a manager, and their team was littered with players who'd been around a while, like Terry Gibson that they got from Villa, Cyril Regis, a big West Indian centre forward, dangerous player, Peter Barnes, Mickey Ginn, Trevor Peake, Ian Butterworth, Mickey Adams, who they got from Manchester United, and a tidy side Coventry, and it's quite a good game, and they press is the best way to describe it, us quite hard, and it looks like we might give in, but against the run of play, Beardsley gets a penalty because Waddle's brought down in the penalty area, and then Coventry, that's on 61 minutes, and on 75 minutes, Peter Barnes equalises, and we come home with a 1-1 draw, which is what sort of result that the Coventry that people expected, I think, because of the they're not a big club, but they've been around in the division a while, so that's quite nice, and we're still bouncing around the top of the league and not sweating on where we're going next. Next game is a home game against Nottingham Forest. 29,000 at the game, and Charlton puts same team out, and he uses Paul Ferris as a substitute again, and Paul gets a game in the second half because there's an injury to Neil MacDonald. Nottingham Forest manager, well, Brian Clough, of course, and you see the start and the makings of what he was doing at Forest with Steve Sutton, Kenny Swain, Bryn Gunn, Chris Fairclough, the original super sub at Liverpool, went to Nottingham Forest. Paul Hart, Ian Bowyer, Steve Wigley, Steve Hodge, Johnny Metgood, Trevor Christie, and Peter Davenport. Peter Davenport, a very, very talented centre forward and quite dangerous, but hard-working side under Clough and an attractive football side. And this was quite an attractive game. Forest tend to play it more on the ground than we are at the moment because Charlton's now got people lofting the ball as often as they can. And looks like we're going to lose it on just after half-time. Just before half-time, Steve Hodge scores on 45 minutes and Forest go in 1-0. And we're struggling after half-time. And then slowly but surely we get back into the game. And believe it or not, we get an equaliser from a corner and Kenny Wharton's the scorer. I'd love to go back and check how many goals Kenny Wharton's got from
he scored a few, didn't
corners. Oh, absolutely. It pops up every now and again. And when you try and read where it was, you can bet your boots it's a near post header. I keep thinking about where were the managers who were running these teams not keeping a finger on Kenny Wharton when he's in the penalty box. But
290 appearances, 26 goals Kenny scored for Newcastle.
Yeah. And I bet most of those were near post headers, guaranteed. Anyway, we're away to Watford now. Oh no, sorry, we're not. We've got a friendly. Goodness gracious, I nearly missed a friendly. The New Zealand 11 are in the country and looking for a number of games to sort of get them ready for competition. So we have the New Zealand FA at St James's Park and beat them 3-0. However, 3,000 at the game. I mean, really, truly. Never mind. We'll get that out of the way and we're off to Watford. That's on a Wednesday, and on the Saturday we're off to Watford for a game with them. Watford a tidy side, some dangerous players in their side, and some names, of course, that we get to know. Charlton picks the same team. He's loyal to the people that he's using. But then Graham Taylor's now manager of Watford, another big name in management and for England, of course, as well. Goalkeeper Tony Cotton, who many think should have played more for England than he did. David Bardsley at fullback, Steve Terry, Wilf Rostron, who used to play for our near neighbours, Kelly Jackett, who is still around as a manager. I think he's the manager of Millwall at the moment. Nigel Callaghan, Worrell Sterling, and then two names we get to know: George Riley and winger called John Barnes. Who names we get to know, and they're in the Watford team. And Luther Blissett is the centre forward, big West Indian centre forward, dangerous guy, and quite an attractive footballer. It's a good game. It's some end-to-end stuff. Neil MacDonald puts you in the lead in 6 minutes. Sinot, 62 minutes, gets them back into the game. Peter Beardsley on 65 gives us a lead. Warren Sterling equalises. Luther Blissett puts them in the lead. And then Kenny Wharton again gets the equaliser. So we end up 3-3 in what was quite an attractive game. So we come back with another point, and we're still sitting pretty in terms of our league position. We're now at the second round of the League Cup, which is heady heights for us. We haven't been this far for a long time. And third round of the League Cup, it's first legs. It's Ipswich, and the first leg's away at Ipswich, and so everybody thinks, well, we'll give this a go. Surely Charlton picks an unchanged team, and we go to Ipswich with the same team. Bobby Ferguson's still the manager with, as I say, I went down the names before: Burley, Butcher, McCall, Alan Sunderland, Eric Gates. They're all in the Ipswich side. An even Steven sort of game. Neil MacDonald scores on 19 minutes to give her a half-time lead. And then just as we thought we're going to get away with a 1-0 win, Eric Gates comes up with a stunner to equalise on 57 minutes. So we get a 1-1 draw in the away leg to bring them back to St James's Park. And I think the general consensus amongst fans was that, well, we should get this one. I mean, the second leg's at home, and there's nothing to stop with doing what we need to do with this one. So, it's anyway, we're home to Luton Town now. The tidy side, not one considered to be a top of the league team, but certainly a tidy side, about middle of the league. And it's at Kellenworth Road, 10,000 at the game. David Pleat's their manager, and they have some names we recognise: Colin Todd, Mal Donaghy from Manchester City, Ray Daniel from Arsenal, Brian Steen, dangerous centre forward that they brought from Coventry, but Charlton sends our usual side, and it looks like it's going to go well. Peter Beardsley on 14 minutes scores. Gary Parker equalises on 26, and then Pat Hurd, who's in our team, scores on 79, and it looks like we're going to get 2-1 until right at the death, just before the final whistle. Brian Steen scores an equaliser for Luton. So a 2-2 draw, which is still pointing us in the right direction. You know, people are not as anxious as they were beforehand. So we now come to the second leg of the League Cup against Ipswich, and well, to most people in the crowd, it's a foregone conclusion. I mean, we're going to progress, aren't we? Well, foregone conclusions don't always happen when you're Newcastle United. the Ipswich, our side, unchanged, except that Pat Hurd's not in the side. He's replaced by Chris Hedworth, and Ipswich team identical to the one that played us at Portman Road, and manager, of course, Bobby Ferguson, and it gets off to a poor start. 11 minutes, Ipswich score, and jangle the nerves of the Gallagher corner. 41 minutes just before half time, Chris Waddle equalises, so people settle down and think, well, yes, the second half we'll take this. Well, second half, it's Ipswich just outplayed with, and because of one person only, little Eric Gates, he was untouchable in the second half, and rightly scored the winning goal on 70 minutes for Ipswich. So, guess what, folk? That's the end of the League Cup again for Newcastle United. Haven't got further than we have for a while, which is hugely disappointing. We're now home against Chelsea in the league, and this isn't going to be an easy game because Chelsea, as I said earlier, are certainly expected to be there or thereabouts when the season ends, which is great considering that, you know, that they're not long in the first division again. The 25,000 at the game. Kevin Carr picks the same team, no changes. Paul Ferris is a substitute again, and John Neal is the Chelsea manager, as he was the season before. They have one or two interesting additions to their squad. A big centre forward called Kerry Dixon, who's to make a big name for himself. The usual names are there: David Speedy, Pat Nevin, Nigel Spackman, Colin Lee, Colin Pates. They're a tidy side, Chelsea, and we know this is going to be difficult. Well, not as difficult as we thought. On 13 minutes, Neil MacDonald makes it 1-0. 20 minutes, Chris Waddle makes it 2-0. So we go in at half time 2-0, thinking that everything's rosy. Kerry Dixon scores a goal for Chelsea just before the end, but never looked like we were going to lose that one. So a good win against Chelsea, and we now have to face a home game against Liverpool. Now, memories of anybody that listened to last year was that it was a 4-0 cup defeat at Liverpool that knocked the stuffing out of her last year. I think nearly cost us promotion, because it really did set her back. So we know this is going to be a hard game, and they're really regarded as champions elect. There's no doubt about that. 27,000 at the game. Jack Charlton fields an unchanged team, and Joe Fagan, the manager of Liverpool, has just listen to the names: Bruce Grobbelaar, Alan Hansen, Mark Lawrenson, Phil Neal, Alan Kennedy, Steve Nicol, Jan Molby, John Walk, Craig Johnson, Kenny Dalglish, and Ian Rush. Now, there's a spatter of names in there who have Newcastle connections, of course. And Lawrenson was a coach, or so allegedly. Alan Kennedy, It's a team to behold, and that's a we.
And there's our team, George, on the screen.
Yes, I found that when I was looking at for stats for the game, and that was I thought that was quite nice. I've never seen that before. I think that's been taken off the television, Steve.
Yeah, it looks like probably off one of those YouTube videos. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. But it's all right.
How the team lined up as well. Waddle and Beardsley up front.
That's right. And good game in Newcastle for quite a while. Looked like they were going to give as good as they got. Steve Nicol got the first goal for Liverpool on 24 minutes. And that's how it looked like it was going to stay till just before the last kick of the game. John Walk scored the second. So Liverpool went away with a 2-0 victory. Now, it was hard losing to them, but on the other hand, we start to see that we're trying to hold our own against these teams. And that's, I think that's significant. So we're now off to Southampton for an away game, and long travel to the south coast. And we hopeful that Southampton aren't great shakes. In fact, if anything, they're knocking around the bottom of the league at the moment, well below us. But that being said, they played extremely well against us. We went to the Dell with 19,000 in the ground, and loaded with Northeast connections, of course. Manager of Southampton is Laurie McMenemy. We've got Mick Mills at fullback. Go down the lot: Shilton, Mills, Whitlock, Bond, Kevin Bond, Mark Dennis, David Armstrong, who has Northeast connections with Middlesbrough, Nick Holmes, Alan Curtis, who ends up with connections with our neighbours down the road, Joe Jordan, Steve Moran, and Danny Wallace. They're very tidy enough, Southampton side, but not having a rub of the green at this time, and certainly below the middle of the league. We go to with Jack Charlton goes with the it's the same team virtually, except that he's brought Gary Mexon in, and Gary Mexon, Peter Beardsley gets a knock, and in second half Gary Mexon comes out for Peter Beardsley. Doing fine until 65 minutes when David Armstrong scores a nice goal from the edge of the penalty area to make it a 1-0 win for Southampton. Disappointing, but not entirely surprising. So we're home to a game against Stoke City. and the Stoke side is in a mess. They're already rock bottom of the league. 21,500 at this game at St James's, and Jack Charlton again plays almost the same team, except he introduces a young attacker, young centre forward called Joe Allen to football, and gets in the game. And Gary Megson keeps his place, and Neil MacDonald stands down. Stoke haven't got a manager at this time; they just sacked their manager. But the team, it's a team of names. But the trouble is that their names are on the wrong end of their careers, like Big Joe Corrigan in goal and George Berry at fullback, Steve Bold, old Arsenal centre back, Sammy McElroy, who by now is in his late 30s, Phil Heath, Keith Birch, a great centre forward for Coventry, but again on the wrong side of 30 to be doing things for Stoke, and Ian Painter on the wing, and it's John Anderson gets a goal from a penalty in 30 minutes. Sammy McElroy pops up in the penalty area and gets an equaliser on 55. And then Chris Waddle on 86 gets the winner. What was a tidy game of football, but I've got to be honest, Stoke should never have been in it. We let them in too easily. But a 2-1 win, which pushes us back into the position of the upper half of the league, which people are starting to rub their eyes and think, well, have we got this man Charlton wrong? There's something wrong here. We're away to Tottenham now, and Tottenham, again, this is another one of the, well, I hate to use the term, one of the big four that we're talking about in the press, because they're regarded.
The big six.
No, not yet, but it's heading that way, and they were regarded as one of the possible title challengers. 30,000 at the game at White Hart Lane, and Jack Charlton sends an unchanged side, and he keeps Megson in, and he uses Neil MacDonald as a substitute this time. Tottenham, Peter Shreves is the manager, a guy who had a lot of good reputation as being a straightforward football guy. And then look at that. Listen to the names in that team: Ray Clements, who they got from Liverpool; Chris Hughton, who we get to know very well later in his career; Paul Miller, Graham Roberts, tough tackling midfielder; Steve Perryman, a very talented midfielder; Gary Stevens, Gary Mabbott in midfield; Glenn Hoddle, future England manager; Mark Falco, and Garth Crooks, a well-known pundit now, and tends to be picking the Premier League team of the week for Sky or somebody at the moment. Anyway, it's an interesting game. First half is 0-0, and then just after half time, Chris Waddle upsets the apple cart by scoring on 47 minutes, but he just wakened Spurs up. Spurs went out after that. 61 minutes, a penalty from Graham Roberts. And then Mark Falco on 64 and 89 minutes gives Spurs a 3-1 win. And having got off to a good start, it was disappointing, but hardly surprising, I have to say. We're now back at home for a game against Norwich City. 20,500 at the game, and Jack Charlton's team is slightly changed with Pat Hurd coming back in. Norwich City, good football side, managed by Ken Brown, one of their former players, and then a number of names that we'll know and get to know even better. In the middle of the defence, two centre backs. One, Dave Watson, who used to play down the road, and the other is a young man called Steve Bruce. What do you believe? Greg Downs in the team. Asa Hartford, a talented player from Manchester City. John Dehan from United, and Nick Shannon from Southampton, who again we get to know Newcastle quite well. It's a tidy game. It's two teams playing good football. Laurie Downs scores on 21 minutes for Norwich, and they go in at 1-0 at half time, and people start to get a bit nervous. But then on 58 minutes, Chris Waddle equalises, and that's the way it runs out. It runs out into a tame draw at the end, but a draw it is, and that's quite nice. It keeps you in the right place in terms of the league. And we'll travel away now to Aston Villa. Villa are regarded as a good side, not regarded as title challengers, but certainly regarded as one of the teams that's on the up. 15,000 at the game. Jack Charlton sends the same team out as he has for a while, except that he puts Ian Baird in because there's a injury to Gary Megson. Graham Turner's the Villa manager, a very well-respected manager and football coach. And again, look at the Villa team. The names jump out. Well, certainly do to me. Nigel Spink, the goalkeeper. Colin Gibson in midfield. Tony Dorigo, they got from Chelsea. Paul Birch, Steve Mahon from Liverpool. Paul Rideout, a very dangerous wide man. Mark Walters, very dangerous midfielder. And centre forward, Peter With, somebody that we know very well on Tyne side. It was one-way traffic, so all you can describe it as. Alan Evans on 35 minutes of the penalty, and then Paul Rideout on 38, 63 and 84 minutes made it a 4-0 win to Aston Villa. And I think more than the defeat to people back home, it was the manner of the defeat, because we never seemed as though we were ever going to get into that game. It was anyway. We're home to West Bromwich Albion next, and we've.
Is it away, George, or home?
Sorry. Forgive me. Yeah, we're away. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the Villa game's on the Saturday, and on the Wednesday we go to West Brom. Now, traditionally, games against West Brom have always been good football games, and no exception. 20,000 at the Hawthorns, and Charlton sends an unchanged team, and he leaves Pat Hurd in the team, having been a substitute. Johnny Giles, the ex-Leeds midfielder, Irish midfielder, is now manager of West Brom. Now, he was a good footballer, but he also was a hard man, and so you wonder what was get from West Brom. But no, they played good football with some good players, England players. Statham, the fullback, Grealish that they got from Manchester, Thompson, McKenzie, Cross, the ex-Leicester player who's been around a bit. A tidy side, and the substitute was Norman Whitehouse, who they got from Manchester United, and it's a good game. Hunt scores for West Brom on 41 minutes. Ian Baird scores 46 for us, and then on 88, just before the death, Thompson, the midfielder, scores the winning goal. So we lose to West Brom 2-1. Not a disgrace by any means, but at least we had to go at the game, which was a good sign. Is all I'd say. Is what we want. So we're now back home to a game against Arsenal, and we know this is going to be a tough game. They're being touted as possible champions. 28,000 at the game, and that's a reflection on that, because the crowd's suddenly gone up about 8,000 from the previous game. And Jack Charlton sends out the same team, except he pulls Ian Baird out of the team and puts a fit David McCreary back in the team. Don Howe, still manager of Arsenal. Goalkeeper, well-known goalkeeper, John Lukic, Viv Anderson at fullback, Brian Talbot, David O'Leary. Tony Adams appears at centre-back in this team. Stuart Robson, Charlie Nicholas, Paul Mariner, Tony Woodcock and Ian Allenson. A very, very talented Arsenal side. Charlie Nicholas puts them in the lead on 43, so they go in at 1-0 at half-time. He gets another one on 52, so they go 2-1 in the lead. Beardsley gets a penalty on 63, and it's 2-1. We think, get all excited because it looks like they're going to have a go at Arsenal. But then Brian Talbot, with a screamer from the edge of the penalty, makes it 3-1, and Arsenal get a 3-1 win. But it was a good game, and if there's any plus, the only plus out of it is that they give Arsenal a go. They didn't sit back and just let it happen. They gave Arsenal a go. So now they're at home to our friends from down the road from Sunderland, and it's something that, of course, everybody's been waiting for. That the first of the new First Division derbies, because Sunderland were already in the First Division. Jack Charlton plays an unchanged team. Steve Carney's a substitute. 37,000 at the game. And Len Hashurst is now back to Sunderland as manager, having been at Swansea. Chris Turner's in goal. Barry Venison at right back. Nick Pickering, Peter Daniel, Gary Bennett, Steve Berry, Howard Gale, David Hodgson, Colin West, Mark Proctor and Clive Walker. Lots of names to conjure with from our near neighbours. And of course, Barry Venison, who we got to know even better shortly after this season. Gary Bennett was the centre back and starting to make a name for himself. He mentioned his name brings back a nice memory for Neil and I. I used to do some promotional work for the Building Society. He used to give me tickets for Roker Park, and although reluctant, Neil used to like to go because we used to go in the director's box and get all the freebies and all this sort of thing. And on one match against, I think it was a cup match against Northampton, they had to pass the hat around for player of the game, and our Neil's come out and he picked one of the Northampton players, where everybody else had picked Gary Bennett. Yes. So anyway, we played the Mackhams and it was a good game, entertaining game for a derby game, but only one team in it, and only one team in it for one reason. Peter Beardsley, he just took Sunderland apart on his own. 15 minutes, 48 minutes, and 81 minutes, and in between, Colin West scored a one on 71 minutes, and not only did the victory against our near neighbours send people home happy, it stopped this run of really, really nasty defeats we've been getting. And we are now home for the FA Cup third round, and against Nottingham Forest. And we're away at Nottingham Forest for the third round. And it's a game that people think we can win and should win. At the City Ground, 23,000 there, and Charlton sends out an unchanged team, leaves Megson in the team, having been in a substitute. Brian Clough fields his usual side as well. Change at goalkeeper, Mark Sagers, he's just brought in, and who else is there wasn't in the team? Ian Bowyer plays in Forest team, who Clough's just brought into the club at Nottingham Forest. A good game. We go ahead 37 minutes with Gary Megson, and then on 69 minutes, Ian Bowyer equalises. But it's a good, entertaining 1-1. It's not a dour draw. It's quite a good draw. So we have a replay to face with Nottingham Forest. And before that replay, though, we have a game against Luton Town, and this is a game which has we play Luton Town and away rather, and I'm getting mixed up with that. Yeah.
Tell you what, George, we'll go to the ads. You just get yourself sorted,
fine.
and we'll go to the ads.
Yeah.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you want to order some, then you can go to their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks also to New Workwear. They were set up in 2018 and they are an agile and dedicated workwear provider. You can find them at their website, newworkwear.com. Thanks to Media Arts as well for all the help with the video side of things. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button under this video. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your other social media. We're also available as a podcast on your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. If you'd like to take out a cult membership, which means you get a cup, a pen, a membership card, a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw, then put your smartphone over this QR code now. It'll take you straight to the site. You can set up and pay a one-off fee of £25. Alternatively, go to nufcmatters.com and check for membership. If you're a subscriber, you can apply for a free car sticker. Just email John at nufcmatters.com to claim yours today. The new Shearer raffle is up and running. 150 tickets, £1 a ticket to win a limited edition Alan Shearer signed ball. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a couple of events coming up. Newcastle United question and answer live with Liam Kennedy, Jordan Cronin and Dominic Skerr from Newcastle World and the Shields Gazette in association with NUFC Matters takes place at the Tyneside Irish Centre, 11th of August at 7 p.m. and tickets are a fiver. The Christmas event will be with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, December the 7th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com. And Waddle, Keegan and Beardsley, the class of 84, with special guests, takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westcott Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 25th. Tickets are available direct from the theatre, 0844 24 91 000, or go to the website for further details. And don't forget, starting on the 7th of August, you will be able to hear myself, Steve Wraith, on the North East Footy Breakfast. This comes to you in association with the Tyne Radio, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 5 days a week. Check out the Facebook for more details. Okay, George, back to you.
Yeah, back to the cup against the Forest. We've got the 1-1 draw. And of course, straight away on the Wednesday, we're at home for the replay. Everybody makes a mistake of thinking it's a formality. And it looks like it because on 5 minutes, Chris Waddle scores 27,000 at the game with a unchanged team. And everybody thinks, well, that's it, we're on my way. Peter Davenport for Forest scores equaliser from a penalty spot in 29 minutes. And it's a dour 1-1 until the very end. And it goes to extra time. And for the first time, certainly first time I can remember, seeing a Newcastle team actually outrun by another team. Clough's team were very fit indeed. And Davenport, Bowyer, Trevor Christie, all were just too strong for Newcastle in the end. And it was Bowyer and Christie who scored the 2 goals in extra time to take Forest through with a 3-1 win. So that's the FA Cup coming to an end, sadly, for us. But the manner of the loss was more important than anything. However, we're away shortly to Everton in the league game. And again, we're now at one of the sides that's one of the top 4, I see it. And Charlton sends his unchanged team away. And Neil MacDonald is the substitute this time. It's 32,000 at Goodison Park. Howard Kendall's still the manager, and they have the strong side: Mountfield, Stevens, Kevin Ratcliffe, Paul Bracewell, who we know, Peter Reid, who we know, Kevin Sheedy, Trevor Steen, Andy Gray, who we know, reputed to be a pundit to tell me, Graham Sharp. But sadly, it's one-way traffic. Sharp scores on 17 minutes. Dangerous centre forward, Graham Sharp. In fact, him and Gray together were lethal. It's got to be said. Mountfield, the fullback, heads the second one in on 32 minutes. So they go in 2-0 at half time, come out after the second half, and then the second half belongs to one person, a winger called Kevin Sheedy, who just takes Newcastle apart. Scores 2 goals, 67, 87 minutes, and that's where it ends 4-0. And that's a piece of action from the game, but it looks like it's them pressing us from that. It's out of a Liverpool paper. That's where that came from. But never mind. So all in the grist of the mill. But we were never in the game. It was a game we never even looked like getting into. Never mind anything else. So we're looking for some consolation, and the next game is the away game at West Ham, and people think, "Oh goodness, we're going to struggle with this one. This is going to be another tough game." 18,000 at the game at Upton Park. John Lyle's their manager, and they've got a strong team. Ray Stewart, Steve Walford, Albert Martin, Paul Allen, Alan Dickens, Jeff Pike, Bobby Barnes, Tony Cotty, and Paul Goddard is the name we know and get to know even better. Charlton relies on virtually the same team. Pat Hurd comes back in to replace McCreary, and McCreary goes onto the left side, and Paul Ferris drops out of the team. Good stuff, end-to-end stuff, good football as well. Paul Allen makes it 1-0 for West Ham. Deadly goal scorer, Paul Allen. But then our deadly goal scorer, Chris Waddle, on 64, makes it 1-1. And we actually ride out that game with little bother. It was very, very, very promising game. So we come next to a home game against Manchester United, and having had the 1,000 that we got at Old Trafford, people view this one with trepidation. Well, trepidation or not, 33,000 at the game tells you that people are want to see this game, and it's a good game. It's Charlton plays an unchanged team. He puts Martin Thomas in goal instead of the usual goalkeeper, and he otherwise he doesn't meddle with it. Manchester United, Ron Atkinson, the manager. The usual strong side: Gidman, Moran, Hogg, McGrath, Paul McGrath, big centre half, centre back, Arthur Abelson, Remy Moses, Jasper Olsen, Gordon Strachan, who became very famous, Norman Whiteside, and Mark Hughes, all names even around today, some of them, and it was a good game. And just to on half time, Kevin Moran, the centre back, scores from a corner. And that's Paul McGrath there with Christy Waddle, and it's February game, which is why there's still snow around the place. And
probably used an orange ball that day as well, because that's what they used to do.
Yeah, that's right. They did. Yes, it looked like that's how it was going to stay to the end of the game. Then, on just over 80 minutes, we got a Peter Beardsley special, a mazy dribble, and a nice shot from the corner of the area to equalise. So, to get a 1-1 draw against Manchester United was regarded as very positive, and it should be. I mean, they were regarded as champions elect. So we're now away to Chelsea. The next game, Stamford Bridge, 22,000 there, and Charlton picks the same side. John Anderson comes back into the squad as substitute. And Chelsea, John Neal, manager, have the usual collection of stars that they've got on the side. They bring another young forward into that team, Gordon Davis, to play alongside Kerry Dixon, and he becomes quite a star, but not with them, with Fulham later in his career. And it's not a brilliant game. I think Charlton had decided not to be, if we're too open, this lot it'll beat we well. Unfortunately, on 2 minutes, Darren Wood for a midfielder from Chelsea, 2 minutes he scores, and the fear is that the floodgates will open, but they didn't. We played very, very defensively, and it was a 1-0, and a 1-0 it was always going to stay. So we come home now to a home game against Luton Town, and everybody feels that must have a chance against Luton. They're not pulling up any daisies. That they're really struggling at the bottom end of the table. Charlton feels an interesting side, because in between this game and the last game, he decided to buy his first two players. And the first two players were George Riley and Tony Cunningham, two big centre forwards. And he puts them both straight into the team at the expense of footballers. And Beardsley and Waddle are cast to the wings to play wide. And we now begin to see the Charlton mantra coming into play. And we play Luton. Never looked like we're going to lose this game. David Pleat's still the manager, and he got some good stagers in. Steve Foster, Mal Donaghy, Peter Nicholas, David Priest, Brian Steen, Mick Hartford. A good tidy side, but all on the wrong side of 30. Looks like it's going to be 0-0. And then on 75 minutes, Kenny Wharton pops in and gets a goal inside the penalty box from a knockdown from one of the big fellas, and we get a 1-0 win. However, anybody that was at the game and can remember it, and I can remember watching our manager, Jack Charlton, go on the pitch and remonstrate on the pitch with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle. Really, and the subject of the remonstration was that just before, a few minutes before the end of the match, Peter Beardsley had gone on under these mazy dribbles and almost scored a goal. But he turned the Luton defence inside out. And Charlton was actually telling them off for that. You should have kicked it into the middle to the big blokes. That's what he was saying, and to Waddle as well. And if you read the two lads' biographies, they both have this commentary in about the fact that after that match, Charlton said to them, look, I don't want you playing 1-2s in front of the goal. I want you playing safely. I want you playing 1-2s with God. I want the ball up there so it's safe, so it can't get beat. And if you read those words in I think it's either Peter's or Chris's, both recall the story after that game. And I think that's kind of sealed the future, shall we say. They knew that that time at Newcastle was going to be fairly short after that. But yeah, I want to play 1-2s with God, not in front of goal. Anyway, we get Watford back the week after, and Charlton plays the same side with Cunningham and Riley both in the side. Graham Taylor brings Watford with his same side as usual: Bardsley, Terry, Rostron, McClellan, Taylor, Sterling, Nigel Callaghan, John Barnes, and Luther Blissett. A dangerous side, but they weren't dangerous on this day. On 32 minutes, Gary Mexon scores. For us, 46, John McClellan equalises. Then on 67, Tony Cunningham scores. And then on 89, George Relly scores a header. And we win 3-1. So it sounds like Charlton's mantra's winning the day by the look of things. But anyway, we're now away to a league game at Nottingham Forest. and having had them in the 2 games in the Cup just recently, people wondered what it was going to be like. Well, they don't need to. They can stop wondering, because it was bloody awful. It was it was a desperate game. Neither team wanted to lose, so we did very little attacking. They could have played another game, they would never have scored. 18,000 at the game, and Clough played his side, which is now becoming fixed. He now has another young centre forward slipped into the side who becomes quite famous, Gary Birtles. Now he's another one who still does commentary on Sky. But his side is Sagers, McNally, Fairclough, Paul Hart, who we got from Manchester City, Kenny Swain, Steve Wigley, Ian Bowyer, Steve Bogey, John Methgod, Gary Birtles, and Peter Davenport, a dangerous side. Charlton sends us with an unchanged team, with the 2 big fellas still in the team. But neither side, they could have played another game and would have never scored. And we come back with a 0-0 draw, which in itself is something, but not what people had wanted for. So we're home to Leicester City next, and everybody thinks, well, we beat them on the first game of the season, so can we do it again at home? We beat them on their pitch, on their midden, as they say, and we hope to do the same. Jack Charlton fields the same team, except that Gary Mixon's injured and David McCreary slots in. 22,000 at the game. And Leicester City come. Gordon Millen's the manager in the hardly. It's the same team as we played when we went to Filbert Street. But unfortunately, it's the same team, and they're really, really on fire. Leicester took us apart, is the only way to describe it. Ian Banks on 2 minutes, Gary Lineker on 35 minutes. Then Peter Beardsley gets one back on 57. Ian Banks scores another on 67, and Alan Smith on 87 makes it 4-1 to Leicester. A very, very comprehensive defeat from Leicester City, and very, very disappointing for the Gallowgate corner. We're now away to Ipswich, and know Ipswich quite well. We know it'll be a good football game. Charlton sends an unchanged team with the 2 big lads in, and he's dropped Chris Waddle in favour of Pat Hurd. Chris Waddle goes as substitute, and halfway through the second half, Relly gets injured, and Chris Waddle has to come on anyway. Boddy Ferguson picks his usual side for Ipswich: Cooper, George Burley, Terry Butcher, named to conjure with, Russell Osman, Kevin Wilson, Eric Gates, the dangerous player who we know from down the road. We play. It's a good game, good football game. Looks like Neil MacDonald's going to get us the points, because on 55 minutes he scores. But then, lo and behold, could have put money on it. Eric Gates on 88 minutes, just before the final, makes it 1-1 with Ipswich. But it still keeps us in the middle of the league, and looking healthy. So we now go to Sheffield Wednesday, and Jack Charlton sends the same team with Neil MacDonald as the substitute. 27,000 at Hillsborough at this game, and Howard Wilkinson's still their manager, and he's got his usual strong side with Martin Hodge, Peter Shercliffe, Mark Smith, Nick Lyons, Nigel Worthington, Brian Marwood, Andy Blair, Gary Shelton, Imre Verardi, of course, and Lee Chapman, big centre forward, to play alongside Verardi. It's a good football game, but not a one which Newcastle can enjoy, because on 10 minutes, Brian Marwood starts the scoring. Lee Chapman, 26 minutes, makes it 2-0. Chris Waddle scores one on 41 and makes it 2-1 at half-time. Then after half-time, Lee Chapman on 58 and Gary Shelton on 60 make it 4-1, and then Peter Beardsley scores a one towards a penalty towards the end to make it 4-2. Quite a comprehensive defeat in many ways, and a disappointing one. So we're now at home to West Bromwich Albion, a team, always a team which play good football and are regarded as a talented side, but not going to be pressing for the championship. 22,000 at the game at St James's. Charlton Fields, the same as usual side, but Gary Mexon gets injured and Neil MacDonald has to come on as substitute. Johnny Giles brings his West Brom team with mixture of young people and old fellas mixing up, making a good side, including, of course, Brian Robson from Chesley Street, and Robertson, Bennett, Hunt, Nicola Godden. They're all talented players and got a good name. It's a good game. It's a tidy game of football, and we 0-0 at half time. It looks like it might dribble out to a 0-0 at the end, and Peter Beardsley halfway through the second half makes sure it's not a 0-0 and makes it 1-0 to Newcastle United, and quite a good result in many ways. It picked the spirits up. People are feeling a bit down after the Leicester game. The 4-1 defeat at home is never very good. We're now back to our neighbours at Sunderland at Roker Park. 29,000 at the game, and virtually the same two teams that had played earlier, except that Jack Charlton's now got these two big blokes in the middle, Cunningham and Riley. Len Hashurst's been playing a steady team. Barry Venison still at full-back, and Nick Pickering, Gary Bennett. Gordon Chisholm comes into the team at Sunderland, and Sean Elliott, two lads that Len Ashurst rather has brought on himself. And although they're trying to play good football, Sunderland are very near to the bottom of the league. However, they fight like Tigers at Roker Park against us. And the other thing worth mentioning about our team is that although he sends an unchanged team, for the first time on the Newcastle team sheet, the name of Paul Gascoigne as substitute. 0-0 it ends, and quite a dour 0-0, but nonetheless we're not losing, and which is important for lots of reasons. We then have a game against QPR at home, and 22,000 at the game, and the crowd's slightly dropping now. Same team as the Roker Park, except and Gascoigne is the substitute, and halfway through the second half, George Riley gets injured, and on comes Paul Gascoigne. Queen's Park Rangers, France Sibley, their manager, mixture of old and young and some talented players. Gary Bannister, John Burnett, talented centre forward, Martin Allen, Terry Fennick, Steve Wicks, big defenders, but they're don't look like they're going to trouble us at all. The only trouble is it doesn't look like we're going to trouble them very much either. But if there's anybody who's going to score, it's going to be us. And then on 63 minutes, George Riley scores from a header from a corner, and is taken off shortly afterwards with an injury after that header. And on comes Paul Gascoigne. So 1-0 win against QPR, but we're sitting nicely in the middle of the league. And we're home again the next week against Coventry City. Coventry.
A little photo there of the young Gascoigne as well. I think he's shaking Paul Stevenson's hand.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's right. And why I'm trying to think why I put that in. Yeah, because it was his,
I'd never seen
because of his debut, and the guy he's shaking hands with they shook hands. It's the same two that shook hands in the Youth Cup final, I think. But it was the fact it was Gascoigne's debut that I really picked that out for. Anyway, we're playing Coventry, and Coventry, Charlton picks the same team. He puts Cunningham back into the side, and Neil MacDonald becomes substitute, not Paul Gascoigne. Coventry City come, and John Mackay is their manager. It's good Scottish midfielder, and Coventry's got the same team almost to the name that we played with: Cyril Regis, Terry Gibson, Peter Barnes, Dave Bennett, Trevor Peake, all Stuart Pearce at left fullback for them is a name that we know, of course, very well. So it's an interesting game, and we're expected to at least get something out of it. Well, expecting's not a good thing when you're a Newcastle fan, because on 2 minutes, Dave Bennett puts Coventry in the lead, and after that, they could have played 2 games and neither side would have scored. It was a miserable game after that. But what was more miserable is we actually lost. Next game is the away game at Liverpool, which we go with some trepidation because they're hot foot, looking like they might be champions. We went in the first half, but then after half time, Liverpool kind of take us apart. Goals from John Walk, Gary Gillespie, and Paul Walsh in quick succession in about a 10-minute period, and we're 3-0 down. And then towards the death, Neil MacDonald gets a consolation to make it 3-1. So another defeat, which is now making our league position look a bit not quite so tidy as it was. We're at home to Southampton next, and 20,000 at the game, and the crowd reflects what they think about what's happening elsewhere. Not a bad game, good football game. Laurie McNamee, of course, is their manager, and the team reads with lots of people who are still around today. Peter Shilton, Mick Mills, Mark Wright, Kevin Bond, David Armstrong, who's the links with the North East, Jimmy Case, George Lawrence, Andy Townsend, Joe Jordan, Steve Moran. A lot of those people are around doing television things and all the rest of it, even now, which is fascinating. Jack Charlton feels the same team. One slight change. Malcolm Brown's taken out at right back, and John Anderson brought back in. We play well in the first half, but just on half time, Jimmy Case, the ex-Liverpool forward, smacks one in from the edge of the area, and Southampton go in 1-0 up. And it looks like that's how it's going to stay until we get a series of corners. And the first one on 69 minutes is headed in by the giant George Riley. And at 80 minutes, we get another one, and it's headed in by one of the littlest men on the field, Kenny Wharton, would you believe? So we get a 2-1 win against Southampton, and starts to make the league position look a bit more respectable. We're away to Stoke, and they're bottom of the league, and leaking goals. I mean, they're getting hammered week after week. So 7,000 at the ground. I mean, 7,000 in the Victoria ground would look abysmal. No managers yet. Still haven't appointed a manager. Barry Siddall in goal, who played for a while with our friends down the road. Steve Bold, Alan Dodd, Sammy McElroy, Mark Chamberlain, Keith Birchton, Carl Saunders, Ian Painter. They're all good players, but players on the wrong side of 30. Charlton plays an unchanged side for us, and it's a fairly drab sort of game because Stoke are determined not to try and lose because they're leaking goals for free. And then on half-time, just before the half-time whistle, Peter Beardsley has a shot, and it's bounced off Dyson, the Stoke defender, and it becomes an own goal, and that's how it stays right to the end. No real fight from Stoke City. it isn't going to happen. So we come home to a match against Tottenham Hotspur, and we know this is going to be tough because they're pushing at the top of the league. Peter Shreves brings his team of talents, that Ray Clements, Chris Hughton, who we know very well, Paul Miller, Graham Roberts, talented Scottish defender, Steve Perryman, Glenn Hoddle, the England manager, Mark Falco, all very talented players, good football side. Charlton plays the same side. He puts Paul Gascoigne back on as substitute, and on halfway through the second half, McCready gets injured and Gascoigne takes his place. Tottenham score on 38 minutes, 41 minutes, Peter Beardsley gets a penalty. And then looks like we're going to do something, because on 66, we get another penalty. And so we look like we're going to get something out of this game. We're 2-1. Then Glenn Hoddle and Ian Crook both scored within a minute or two of 70 minutes, and Tottenham go out 3-2 winners. Very entertaining game, disappointing result, but entertaining, no doubt. And they now come to effectively the last game of the season at Norwich, and 18,000 at the game. The best said soon as mended, because this is an abysmal game. Neither side looked like they would score if we played 2 or 3 games. And the only thing worth commenting on really is that we had an unchanged team at Carrow Road, and they played with some names that we know well in this part of the world, like Dave Watson from down the road, Steve Bruce, Asa Hartford, tricky little forward that they got from Manchester City. But a 0-0 draw of the sort that you would get football banned if they played it every week. And that's the end of our season. And we end up, I think it's 15th or something like that. 14th. But letting in 78 goals. And there's only one team that's worse than that, and that's Stoke, who got let in 91 goals, which, good God. Yeah. However, most significantly, they're relegated, and they're relegated with Sunderland. Sunderland go down that season, and that we got 14th is something, but the style of play, I know from the Gallagher corner, this up and under to feed the 2 big men was driving the fans balmy. And then we go off to a tournament, a series of friendly games in the Far East, in Polynesia. We go and play the Fiji FA twice, and we play the New Zealand team twice. So
we'll love a friendly, George.
Yeah, definitely. All I can conclude is that there must be money in it. What's interesting is that the first Fiji game, there was only 4,000 at the match. In the second Fiji game, there was 12,000 at the match, which I'd love to know the history behind that, whether it was a different place or what. But consolidated season is all you can say. But people were aware of the rumblings behind the scenes with people like Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle, unhappy at what they were being asked to do. There are another bits worth reading, and I think it's Chris Waddle's biography. He says he was bluntly told by Charlton that he and Peter were there just for knockdowns from the big blokes, and they had to provide the ammunition for the knockdowns and follow up for the second ball. And, fancy saying that kind of thing to 2 talented players like that. It's little wonder that they disappeared. Little wonder. So that's it, Steve.
Great stuff, George, as always. Thanks for your time on it.
That's all right.
Looking forward to next season in those were the days. But George, for now, thanks very much, mate.
My pleasure. Thanks for watching, everybody.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.